If you must blink, do it now.
I like that.
Hello and welcome to the Picture Show with Austin and Phil Rood. I am Phil Rood. I'm the dad.
I'm Austin Rood. I'm the son. Every week we watch a movie and then we get on mic and we talk about it.
Yes, we do.
That is the premise. How have you been?
I'm good.
All right.
You?
Short and sweet. All right. Now on to me.
Yeah. Let's. I've not been up to a whole lot consuming wise this week. This has been mostly a little bit of watching Sweet Tooth. And then I've just been wrapping up a couple of commissions, trying to get artwork for the show done, and just general work stuff.
Kind of wrapping up projects.
Trying to. I did record with Hammond Chamberlain yesterday, as we're recording this. I did the annual artist roundtable. I had Carolyn Fortuna, Audie Norman, and J.F. Dubois on the roundtable.
How was that?
It was great. It was really a great group of really awesome artists. And one of those things that made me realize, like, oh, I don't, like, sit around and talk about art a whole lot. So, you know, now when I get the opportunity to do something like that, it really, like, I really, really appreciate doing it. And it makes me realize, like, oh, I need to, you know, get back in a community of artists where we're talking about this kind of stuff more. But it was really, everybody had some really great pieces. I'm pretty proud of what I turned in this year. Just in general, it was a really good conversation to have. That'll be out the end of July on the Beyond the Playlist, just to give it a quick plug. Beyond the Playlist with J. Hammond C. It'll be this year's Artist Roundtable, and I think it's the last week of July, he said it's coming out. So,
That's cool to have, like, a community of artists or friends that, like, whatever you're into, like, to have people to talk about that with.
I think the creative community, you know, we see it a lot just in podcasting. Podcasting is very active. But I really have not, it really kind of made me realize, like, I've kind of pulled back and dropped off the grid in a lot of ways in the last 6 months to a year. And just haven't interacted with people in those communities as much. And I really need to get back to doing it, because it is really rewarding when, you know how big creative communities can be, like, super toxic too.
Right.
But when you've gone through all of that and you've kind of whittled it down to your core group within that community.
Small, like, positive.
It is like you have to try and maintain that, I think, a little bit. And it takes some effort that a lot of us, honestly, have been really busy and really distracted, and it's kind of fallen away. But I think we started to realize, I need to get back to that. So
that's
anyway.
Good.
That's been my week. That's been my last few days anyway. How about you?
Not too much going on. I did have Pride weekend. Me and my friends went to St. Pete, which is like an hour away from Tampa in Florida. And there was like this, it was kind of a laid back picnic. They couldn't have a parade.
Okay.
So it was just like this park that had been rented out with booths and stuff. And
oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's like a convention, kind of. But outside. GayCon.
That's right.
Yeah.
You dress up as your favorite gay characters.
That's, no, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's just a positive place to be. So I really have fun at Pride. I try to go every year, but I don't always.
Well, did it even happen last year?
I don't think
with,
so.
Yeah, because
it was July. That was like the heat of the pandemic.
Yeah, in Florida where we are, like I think things were
especially
pretty bad at that point.
Yeah, we're lucky it's coming back this year. Like that things have gotten good enough to.
Yeah. Vaccinations our cases, our new cases are down. Mm-hmm. And don't take this in any way of us saying the pandemic is over. I mean, check local listings. We're lucky that we've been able to be vaccinated, and there's kind of a handle gotten on it, but worldwide, like there's a long way to go.
Right, and there was mask wearing, there were precautions.
Sure.
But yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. It kind of meant that I had a low media week.
Yeah.
Tragic, I know. But I did finish Doctor Who. Me and my boyfriend...
A low media week. I watched 50 years of Doctor Who.
I didn't finish it. I finished a season of it. Because me and my boyfriend were slowly making our way through. And we just wrapped up Series 9. Which, for those who don't know, it's a very experimental season. So I kind of wanted to talk about it because Doctor Who, like, it's sci-fi and they're always trying to do new things.
Right.
So, like, within each season, there are, like, episodes where they're, like, pushing the limits. But for Series 9, the whole season was like that. Like, the structure of it itself, it was 2-part episodes. So each episode was just half of a story. And that allowed them to do more things. And then there was an episode with, what is it? Like first person perspective.
Oh, okay.
And kind of found footage. All these weird things. And people kind of hated it, but it's very close to my heart. I love it. So.
Oh, we've talked about things like that before, where I will say, I kind of respect a bad movie that's trying. You know what I mean? Like maybe it doesn't execute well, but it's taking some chances and it's really trying to be something special, as opposed to a movie that just plays it safe and goes by the formula. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's easy to hate on something like, well, we just talked about this on Hit Me One More Time a couple weeks ago, where we did Batman Forever. And we said in a lot of ways, like, that's the worst of the 90s Batman movies because it's just the most by-the-numbers, boring. It's not doing anything. But you take something like Batman and Robin, which is an objectively, like, bad movie. But that movie is crazy, and it's trying to do a bunch of different things. It's not doing them well, but it's at least taking some chance, and that's what makes it a weird, kind of fun, bad movie. You know what I mean?
I hear what you're saying.
I'm not saying this is bad. I'm just saying, like, it's easy to hate on something that's weird, but really you should be respecting something that's weird and courageous enough to be taking chances on experimenting.
For sure. There's an episode of Doctor Who where the moon is an egg. And they find out the moon is an egg, and then it's like this abortion metaphor of, do we risk killing everyone on Earth by letting it hatch? Or do we kill it and it brings the gravity of the shell back together and then we have a moon? It's really weird and people hate it, but I think it's an amazing episode.
That sounds like the greatest thing ever.
But I think the main problem with Series 9 that people have is like, there's roughly like 12 episodes a season. Mm-hmm. So when you have one story over 2 episodes and that's the whole season, it's like 6 stories.
Right.
And then if you don't like one, you're stuck in it for an hour and 20 minutes or something. So,
yeah, I get that. I mean, that's the risk of long form versus like short stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I've heard comedians talk about that who are like storytelling comedians. And they're like, if something's not working, you're stuck in this 5 to 10 minute story with an audience that's not laughing. But if you're just like a joke comedian. You tell a joke, it doesn't work, you just move on to the next joke.
Yeah, you just switch material.
But like when you're stuck, when you've committed to a story, and that's the same thing. If you're committed to a 2-part story, and you're even as a viewer, you're just like, oh man, this kind of sucks.
Yeah,
but
I think like that kind of pushing the envelope is what makes sci-fi. So I applaud it, even when it doesn't always turn out perfect.
Who's the Doctor in Series 9?
That's Peter Capaldi.
Okay. Nobody liked him anyway.
The legend. Yeah. He's the best one.
I'm just saying, like, in general, like...
Everyone was like, he's too old.
Yeah, nobody liked anything that guy did.
The viewing figures were not great. But yeah.
Well.
It happens.
Yeah. Cool. Well, this week, we did not watch Doctor Who.
Speak for yourself.
For the show. We watched the 2016 animated adventure film, Kubo and the Two Strings, wherein a young boy must locate his late father's magical suit of armor in order to defeat a vengeful spirit. This movie stars Charlize Theron, Art Parkinson, Matthew McConaughey, Ralph Fiennes, Rooney Mara, and George Takei. Oh my. As the one actual Japanese cast member. This movie was directed by Travis Knight and was written by Mark Haynes and Chris Butler.
Quite the cast.
Yes, it actually is a pretty impressive cast for this Laika film, this kind of small animation studio.
Matthew McConaughey, when I saw that in the credits, I was like, I had to reevaluate. I was like, what? Yeah. That's who I've been listening to for the whole movie?
Yeah, it's crazy. But he's really funny in this. I think he's really good. I think that character actually, not deep, but just surprisingly entertaining the whole way through.
He is, yeah. I think everyone in this movie kind of embodies their character really well.
I agree. This was your first viewing of this, right?
It was.
I have seen it once before. I remembered really liking it, and I remembered the broad strokes of it, but not the details of it. So I was really glad to go back and watch this again. I really enjoyed it even more this time around. How about you? What's your takeaway from this movie? First impression?
Well, I'm definitely going to have to watch it a lot more. That's my takeaway.
You mean like to get something out of it, or you just enjoyed this and you want to watch it more?
I think to get the full scope of it.
Sure.
But I really enjoyed it, and I know there's more there. I just think this is a very, like, big story. Like, there's a lot crammed into here. There's a lot of ideas. There's a lot of, like, small details in the animation that, like, I definitely missed something this time around.
I think that's super fair. I was looking at the runtime of this, and it's 1 hour and 41 minutes, and it seems like a longer movie because there's just so much packed into this.
Yeah.
It is a big story. There's a journey that happened. You know what I mean? Like, anytime characters go on, like, a long journey, and that stretches over, like, half of the movie, it makes the movie seem like, oh, this is really long. This is really padded out.
But by the end, you're asking, can I go home yet?
It does kind of make you feel like you've been traveling with them a little bit.
Yeah, although I noticed this movie doesn't show a lot of actual traveling. Like, it spends like 3 seconds and then it's like, all right, we're immediately to the next scene because we got to keep the ball rolling.
They're on the boat for quite a while.
Yeah, I don't know. I noticed, like, after they found Beetle,
right,
like, almost instantly they were off to find the sword.
Yeah. No, that's pretty fair. But I think you still feel how far they're traveling just because the scenery's changing all the time. They're in the snow. They're in the mountains. They're in, like a forest. They're on the shore of the long lake or whatever, and it's a constantly shifting set. So it does still feel like they're moving.
It does.
And they're going forward.
Yeah.
But for all that, it doesn't, like you're saying, like it switches a lot, and that is true, but do you feel like this movie feels rushed?
So structurally, I feel like the movie works really well, but like, I feel like the scenes are just a little rushed. Like a few of them just needed some more time to breathe, but that would have dragged down the pace of the overall movie. So I understand why decisions were made.
Yeah, I think there were enough scenes that did stop and breathe that helped. I do agree they're quick scenes, but there's a few in there where like they're having their meal together.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like even just like them eating sushi on the boat, which was a quick scene, but I feel like that was the family dinner.
No, that was a really good scene.
And there was enough impact in that. And I think I would argue like that scene is really passive emotionally. It's just like, it's a family dinner, but you don't necessarily realize it's the actual family yet. But, right. But that is a more emotional moment than the heavyweight emotional moments of like finding out that Beetle is his father. You know what I mean? Like that's an emotional moment, but I feel like there is more impact in like the family dinner scene or Monkey describing the love story, her telling the story with the origami. I feel like those scenes that stopped to breathe and have a quiet family moment were the most impactful emotional beats of the movie.
You're right about that. I think what I meant, like, I'm not talking about that, is what I'm more like the action scenes weren't like I think what really stands out to me is the first one with where they're trying to get the sword,
the big skeleton.
Yeah, like he never felt like a threat because we never even like focused on him.
Right.
Like 90% of that scene is focusing on the characters, which is how it should be. I don't know. There just needed more like establishing shots. It's just small details.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. The skeleton, I think that's a great scene because it's always moving and the characters are always working towards their goal. And that makes it an effective scene. But the skeleton itself, it's like, it's a giant, scary looking skeleton, but he's never eating them. He's never crushing them. Like, you're like, is this skeleton a threat? It's
he just wants to pick them up and hold them.
It is like that. It's almost like the skeleton is there, and the only thing it's really doing is keeping them from getting the sword. It's just playing defense. It's not even like trying to hurt them, it seems like.
Right. It makes the offense of the other team look a little less engaging.
It just, like, whatever they were doing had so little effect on it that I think that's where it just comes out feeling a little toothless. But I liked it as a comedy scene. I liked, like Matthew McConaughey, the Beetle, is like, I got a bone to pick with you. And then he's like, because he's made out of bone. Like, there's like these weird little comedy moments in there where I feel like it's an action scene, but they're also like having fun with it. It's almost like a video game scene where a antagonist in a video game isn't there to kill you. It's just there to stop you from hitting your goal.
Yeah, it's just this giant obstacle in the way.
Right, yes.
A chore.
But an action scene that did work for me is the monkey versus the one sister, the fight on the boat.
Yes. The family drama in general, like they establish like the stakes there. There's like a reason to care. There's a lot going for it there.
Yeah. What did you think of the witches, the sisters that are, or Kubo's aunts, I guess?
Right. I thought they were really cool, like design wise. With like
they were members of Anonymous.
Sure, I didn't even...
They had the V for Vendetta costumes on.
The funny thing is, I didn't notice that was a mask, and I kind of wish it wasn't. Like, I just saw, like, unmoving mouths, and then they're talking, face, like, kind of like, I thought they were talking, like, in someone's head.
Yeah.
And then, like, it breaks the jaw of one of the sisters' masks, and you see her talking. Which in itself is kind of cool, but
before, did you catch the end of the fight on the boat? Monkey goes to take with the sword, and she goes, "You made me stronger," and she swings the sword, and then it cuts to Beetle swimming up with Kubo, and as he's swimming up, the mask is in two pieces, sinking.
Oh, I didn't see that. He swims
past that. The brilliant part of that boat scene, if I can go back to that for a minute.
Go for it.
Is the way it cuts between the underwater stuff, where Kubo's underwater, looking for the breastplate, the armor, and the fight on the boat. And every time it reaches like a big climax on the boat, it cuts to the other one. And it really keeps the suspense alive. I feel like it shouldn't work, but it really does. Because there's suspense happening in both places. And it gets you to the fever pitch of each of them. And that's when it cuts back to the other one.
You keep wanting to be like, no, go back to that scene.
Right.
And then by the time it goes back to that, you're like, no, stay with this one.
That's it. It's put together in such a great way that you say, no, stay with Kubo. But you're immediately engaged by what's going on in the boat because neither one of them is stopping building the suspense.
Right.
And I think it's a really brilliantly put together sequence. It's a great fight scene. I mean, honest to God, it's really, really good.
And it's beautiful. Like, I love the concept of the boat disintegrating as Kubo is, like, hypnotized. Like... It really worked, and like it's slowly falling apart. It was so nice.
And then Beetle is like Dory in this movie.
Oh my God,
he's dumb. He forgets things.
I got the fish.
He comes up. He's been fishing the whole time. But yeah, it's all of those things that make that work for me. On top of the fact that I love the sisters. I love the aunts as evil witches. I think they're creepy as shit.
They were.
They are kind of terrifying. And just the way that they make them move, like when Kubo first sees them and they just come floating across the water with their toe almost touching the water and just sort of levitating towards him. It's just
it adds to the like they aren't from this world kind of feeling.
Right. They're magical, which this immediately establishes that this family has magic powers.
Yeah.
You know, but it also seems further removed than that. Than just Kubo having like magic origami. You know what I mean?
What do you mean by that?
That they are like magic is almost just accepted in this version of Japan, right? Like Kubo he performs in the village, you know, doing magic openly.
Well, I kind of just thought everyone like he has that because he's related to magical people.
Right. But at the time you don't know that. You just know that he's like, well, you know, I guess you see his mom like split the wave at the very beginning.
Right.
But
no one's like, oh my God, we gotta like get this kid to the king. Like,
that's what I'm saying.
They all
like,
just kind of, yeah.
It's just accepted that Kubo has like magic, but then when you see his aunts, it's like, oh, that's a huge reach. Like that's weird even for this world.
It's on another level.
That's what I'm saying. Like it just seems like, and it's almost jarring when you see them. And I just think they're great designs. Rooney Mara does the voice of them.
Okay.
And it's like a perfect, like, droning kind of I don't know if it's reminiscent of the Shining twins.
So a little like disinterested.
A little sing-songy and kind of playful in a menacing way, like they're toying with Kubo almost.
Yeah, they are. They think,
right.
this kid's gonna be no problem.
But it's just such a
love about that scene where they're introduced, like, and I noticed it right away, is they're in a broken triangle position. Like, the sisters were offset from each other. They weren't side by side.
Right.
One was at like the peak of the triangle, and one was, and the way the camera was positioned, it's like you're looking at it face on. There's a missing point to the triangle. And
that would be...
you can kind of feel that the mom is...
the mother, yeah, wow.
She's left this hole in the group.
Good eye. I didn't pick that up. That's great composition of a shot, but also like kind of a subtle, like, we're missing our third. Yeah.
Right. At first I was like, there should be 3 here, and then the mom, and then I was like, no, the mom's the third one that's missing.
It's a really great bit of world building, I think, that is done in this story organically. That there are magical people. This is a magical family. And we slowly sort of learn what the mom's role in all of it was and how everything came to be.
It kind of feels like a Greek myth to me. Like with the family drama and the backstabbing and...
Yeah,
I don't know.
A little bit. There's elements of like, Thanos' daughters in the MCU, you know, being like one of them betrayed, one of them left the fold, and then the others having to go get them back. There's elements of movies we've watched in this that we've watched for this show. Kung Fu Hustle. I noticed like do you remember the musicians in Kung Fu Hustle who had the Chinese stringed instrument?
Oh, yeah,
and they were blasting out like weapons from it.
I was wondering why you wrote that in the show doc.
Yeah,
I didn't even put that together.
The way Kubo has his his, I don't know what that instrument is called. It's like a Japanese banjo or guitar. But he's basically like leveling forests and stuff with it. He's really doing some damage on that.
Or destroying waves.
Yep. The way it cuts through. V for Vendetta, I pointed out already, and also Hidden Fortress that we watched on here, where it is about protecting the last of the line in Hidden Fortress. Remember, they're escorting the princess, and then we find out, oh, she's the Hidden Fortress. Like, that's what this is. It's escorting the last of the line and figuring out, like, oh, he's kind of the one who is super powerful and has the ability to right all the wrongs in the family.
The end of the bloodline, I feel like that is a bit of a trope. Like, I'm not saying that as a negative. Like, it adds kind of stakes to it, and it also explains why this character is like the chosen one.
Yeah.
Like, it explains everything, the powers, the parents, why everyone's upset. I think it really works.
It's all, and the chosen one thing is it's not like an absolute. It's not like there's some prophecy or anything. His mother's not trying to give him the call to the hero's journey. His mother's trying to protect him at the beginning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like she's saying, you're the chosen one, Kubo. You have to learn this. Everything she does is in service of keeping him from having to go be the hero. Keeping him hidden and keeping him safe.
She's trying to protect him from like her mistakes.
From where she comes from.
Yeah.
You want to talk about Coco?
Coco, sure.
Coco, the Pixar movie.
Oh, like relating spirits.
Yeah, I think there's a really strong parallel here.
I would say so.
Both of them are steeped in the culture of the character that they're that they're exploring.
Yeah.
They're musical children. And they're musical children seeking a connection with their long-lost father.
With dead relatives,
They're seeking a spiritual connection to this presence that they never have known. I would say this is much darker, actually, than Coco.
This movie is surprisingly dark. Like, in the first scene, when Kubo's mom, she hits her head on a rock.
Oh, it's brutal.
And there's blood. I was like, who allowed this? I thought she died. I thought we witnessed a character death, and I was stunned.
You just saw her get a massive concussion that basically made her almost a vegetable for the rest of the movie until she becomes a monkey. But like,
it's very dark.
It's a really, I mean, everything, the villainy in this movie, the witches, they're dark. The grandfather, actually, like, that's a chilling scene when he shows up as a ghost.
Yeah.
You know, and he seems like a night. There's just a level of menace to this entire movie that it's just under the surface, even in like a lighter scene when they're fishing or something like that. It's always like something is going to happen. Like there is.
How is it going to go wrong?
I don't feel like that is an element of like Pixar movies where there are real stakes in Pixar movies, but I don't feel like there's a constant dark tone to those movies. Whereas something like this is a Laika movie, Coraline, Paranorman, Box Trolls, all of that stuff has a super dark edge on it, which is maybe animation for a little bit older kids. Maybe some emo teenagers are the target audience of. No, I'm serious. Like some. I feel like these are Pixar is sort of an all ages thing, but you know, I took you guys to see Coraline when you were small, and I had people really look at me cross-eyed, like, you took your children to that movie? It's like, yes, like
it's a children's movie.
It is a children's movie, but your children also have to be able to handle some darker subject
It is
matter.
mature.
It's not for every child, I would say.
I think that's fair. And but I feel like Coraline is darker than this movie. Like this movie is dark.
Yeah.
But I think a lot more kids could handle.
Both of them are obsessed with eyes.
Oh yeah.
Is Laika do you think they have a thing for eyes the way like George Lucas has a thing about cutting hands off and arms?
Maybe.
Like there's a weird thing. I feel like this is right in line with something like Coraline, or it's probably the same level of dark that like Paranorman is.
Paranorman never felt that dark to me. It's been a while since I've seen it.
It's been a while since I've seen it too, but I remember it being kind of like this in that it is a comedic movie that just constantly has like an edge of darkness to it because it's a kid who can see dead people, you know, sees ghosts and
right.
And there's a haunting that he knows is coming, and it's just sort of like, I feel like that's the edge on this one. There's so much fun stuff in this movie, in Kubo. There's great elements. It's a great script, but there's always like this darkness right on the edge of it that I think is just brilliantly blended in there.
It goes hand in hand with like the stakes.
Yeah, I think so. It makes the stakes feel very real. Where regardless of what we said about the giant skeleton, maybe he's not a threat to their lives, but he is a legitimate obstacle to them finding what they need to find. Finding
the armor. And if they don't find the armor,
right,
then Kubo's gonna die, basically.
Well,
they don't not die, but like he's gonna lose his eye, he's gonna lose his soul.
He's going to lose to the Moon King in one way, shape, or form.
Yes.
But let's talk about the armor. I mean, the whole premise of this movie is basically nothing because it's not the armor that saves him.
Yeah, the armor's kind of like just there.
The armor's like the MacGuffin of this movie, or the goober, to use the Spider-Man, the Spider-Verse.
Oh yeah,
it is sort of like that allows him to discover what he does need.
It's a through line, but then they like abandon it at the end, which isn't a bad thing because like it's like, no, you didn't actually need this.
Right.
You just need to be true to yourself, aka use the guitar that you've had the whole time.
It's the Wizard of Oz thing. You don't need the wizard. You have the shoes. You have the ability to go home the whole time.
Dad, Kubo is barefoot in this movie. I don't know what you're talking about.
He did not have red shoes on. But
he was already home at the end of the movie. No, but yeah.
Which I think it's a good element because he needed something to go on the journey. The journey is what taught him.
It's the family road trip.
It is. It's National Lampoon's Vacation with more Japanese folklore in it.
And death.
A lot more death. There's some death in National Lampoon's Vacation.
I don't remember, but okay. I'll take your word for it.
You have a note in here I wanted to talk about, which we should have hit a minute ago when we were talking about who is this movie for? Genuine comedy versus kids comedy. What did you mean by that?
Way to introduce my topic for me. So I wanted to talk about genuine comedy versus kids comedy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know.
I was not prepared for this.
But yes, I feel like this movie is actually hilarious. Like, when it's funny, it's really funny. And something about it, like, kids' movies always have jokes thrown in there to lighten the mood and to keep kids entertained.
Or subtle, like, adult humor for the parents. Like, oh, we know parents will have to go to this movie. And we'll throw a couple of wink jokes in on them.
Right, but that's all it is.
Right.
And with this movie, I feel like it's kid-friendly comedy, but it's, like, actually funny. It's like you would find this in, like, a sitcom made for adults.
Sure.
If that makes sense. I don't know how to verbalize it. A lot of it is kind of slapstick or, like, situational, like you said.
It's a lot of it's situational.
When they're fighting the skeleton, and it should be serious, but then they just throw in these dumb jokes.
Right.
But then there's even, like, there's something, what's it called? The Unbreakable Sword.
Yeah.
And then
the Sword Unbreakable, yeah.
Beetle wakes up and he's like, I've been sleeping on something, and he pulls it out and he's like, more like sword uncomfortable.
Sword uncomfortable, yeah. Or when they think they have the sword unbreakable and it breaks. And he's like, so did they just mean like the handle? Or, like there's a lot of jokes in here that fit what's going on in the movie. They're really well-written jokes because they're, in context. And they're not pandering. They're not like pandering to kids. They're not pandering to anyone watching it. They don't seem dumbed down.
It's not like Marvel humor.
Right.
Like, yeah, I feel like Marvel humor is like the same as Disney cartoon humor, where it's just like kind of thrown in there.
It's a
little take the edge off.
Aren't we clever? Kind of.
Right.
A lot of references and things like that. Not like Family Guy style, but just sort of like there's a lot of winky stuff in there. Like if you watch like the first Avengers movie, there's a lot of Joss Whedon humor in there, and Joss Whedon is kind of contextually funny, but only if you know the world he's playing in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not funny joke. Like, they're not actual funny joke. Like, Buffy... I mean,
all of it is like Iron Man just calling people references to other movies.
Yes. Exactly. Hey, Point Break, this kind of thing. And it's just like, yeah, okay. Like, I get it. It's like Buffy was always, like, clever, but it only worked in the context of this universe with people who knew it. You couldn't come in cold and get it. And that's just sort of like, it's so specific to that tone of this and that. And I feel like that's a lot of the MCU humor. It's like, it's fine if you're there, if you've been along for the ride, you know, but outside of that, you're going to miss it. And you're right. This is a genuinely funnier script with actual comedic moments built into the action movie part of it.
It feels not forced. It's almost like they were just writing the script and someone made a joke and they were like, we'll add that in there. I don't know. And it's true to the characters, too. Like, Beetle is kind of dumb.
Right.
And they build on that. And, what is it? Monkey is, like, sarcastic, like, kind of stern.
Very serious. And a lot of that humor of hers comes out of her being overly serious.
Yeah, she's like the straight man in a comedy.
Yeah, exactly. And she's great. I really like her. Her character as being like you really buy that even before you know that it's the mother, you buy that she is like hardcore serious about protecting her son.
Yeah, I kind of thought it was like this thing of like, that's her mission. Like, she was brought to life with this magic of like, I'm gonna protect Kubo, so that's the only thing she cares about.
Like the little monkey charm was like the totem to protect him,
right?
And that was it. That's the sole purpose of this monkey.
Mm-hmm. And she's introduced as like very like down to business,
right?
But then like you see in the moments like when she's scratching Beetle's back, he's like, "Are you being nice to me?" And she like goes, "Shh, don't tell anyone."
Right. You do get the sense of, I mean, what this movie is about, humanity. You get the sense that, yes, she seems like she is just singularly focused on this mission. But realistically, there's more to her than that. And slowly that... I love that this movie slowly reveals everything about who Beetle is, who Monkey is, who Kubo is. And all of the family dynamics that go along with that. It's not all dropped in a single exposition dump. It slowly comes to surface over time.
Right. And I will say it was very predictable. Like, I knew immediately who Beetle was. Monkey...
There's like 5 characters in this movie.
Monkey threw me off guard for like a second, but then when she was flirting with Beetle, I was like, oh, I get it.
Right.
I was like, I see this.
I remember the Beetle reveal, but not the monkey one. But
interesting.
It all made sense.
Yeah.
I like the monkey reveal is great when right before she kills the first sister. She says, "Oh yeah, Hanzo made my sister weak," and she says, "No, it made me stronger." Like, that's the reveal.
Like she says me, yeah.
Right. It's like, oh, that's brilliant. That's a brilliant way to drop that. And then they just cut away immediately to Kubo and Beetle. It's a really, I think this is a really smart script.
It is. Which I'm actually, when we were looking at the credits, it kind of shocked me because there was something that said story by.
Right.
Like, it was this whole section and it was like 10 to 12 people, and I was like, you know how like when a script is written by like multiple people, it's like the more people, it's like the more iffy.
Sure.
But this was just story, so like that confused me.
Right. There's actually only 2 credited screenwriters.
Right. So they were probably on the creative team.
Story contributors or producers who also got story credit. A lot of times, like, I heard it'll be in my shout out, but I heard a podcast about a married couple who made a movie. They made a movie called Animal Crackers, and they went on the fundraising thing, and everybody who put them in touch with somebody they could get money from, the person who just put them in touch got like a producer's credit. So, you know what I mean?
Wow.
Like certain credits become negotiated. So, like, anyone who contributed any amount of story to this or said, hey, what if you make him a beetle? Hey, what if you put the beetle thing on the back of his robe? like they could have gotten a story credit or contributed anything at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, there are two screenwriters credited, and I think they did a great job of putting this together. That is Mark Hames and Chris Butler. Let's see. Yeah, Chris Butler wrote Paranorman. He wrote a movie called Missing Link. He was in the art department of Coraline.
So he's been with Laika Studios.
He's been with Laika for a bit, yeah. He was a storyboard artist for Corpse Bride.
We have him to thank for a lot of stuff.
Let's see. He's on the crew of Box Trolls. Yeah, like real big in like the stop motion animation world. And then, let's see, Mark Hames, Kubo, he's producer of Men in Black 2. He's on the crew of Transformers. Let's see his writing credits. Paranormal Activity. He worked on. Oh, he's worked on all kinds of stuff.
That's a lot more less just animation, but that's interesting.
Yeah, he's got a lot of varied stuff in there. And then Travis Knight, who directed this. Let's see. Missing Link, he's a producer on that. He produced Box Trolls. He produced Paranorman. Let's see, Bumblebee. He worked on Bumblebee. He was a lead animator on Box Trolls and Paranorman.
Cool.
Lead animator on Coraline. Something called Moon Girl. He was an animator on the Eddie Murphy claymation TV series called The PJs back in the late 90s. Lot of animation work in this, and you can tell like they know, if somebody is a storyboard artist, I think there's a natural sense of storytelling that goes with that. So
yeah,
the idea that these people were able to collaborate on this movie and put together something so smart that moves so well and has a pretty complex story. I mean, the plot is pretty simple, but this is kind of a complex story.
There's a lot of pieces in play.
Right. Yeah.
And also, like, I feel like it was complex to make. Like, this is a mixing of mediums.
Yeah.
It's like part claymation, but a lot of it is animation.
There's a lot of CGI elements, and it blends really well. It doesn't look like the styles are clashing.
Yeah, it's all it all blends.
For sure. I don't know. I don't know what else I can say about this movie.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
You
can say as many things as you want to, Austin.
Well, I'm gonna say one. Okay.
Oh, all right. Fair enough.
Part of the moral or like the message or one of the themes in this movie that really is one of my favorites to see in a story is stories about stories, which sounds like Inception, but like really it's just like talking about how we paint human lives as a story. Like, and when it ends, there's a brilliant line that the monkey says, the mom monkey. She says that her story will end soon, but that it's like origami. It just gets folded into something new.
Something else. Right.
And that a whole new story starts. And it's just such a wonderful way to look at life. That we all tell stories and that stories can end and you can start a new story. You can have you don't have to die. You can have a new beginning today if you wanted to. You can just close that chapter and be like, I'm a new person. I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to have a rebirth. Like,
exactly. We've talked about that on here before about, I don't remember what movie we were talking about. But just discussing things like rebirths, like starting over, like the fact that people have multiple chapters of their life. And that this I think definitely enforces that. We see the mom the very beginning of this movie is the mother starting over.
Yeah.
And then you see her start a new chapter of her life as the monkey. And then in that, like what you're saying, you know, she talks about the origami metaphor. And also just telling Kubo, you know, the end of one story is the beginning of another. And when the parents pass, then it is Kubo's story. It is his fight at that point.
Yeah.
So it really is like a brilliant way to not only keep the story moving along, keep the script moving along, but actually incorporate that tool into what this whole movie is about.
I mean, Kubo is a storyteller in itself,
right.
And he's telling the story. It's really cool. Can I share a quote that I feel like speaks to that, actually?
Yes.
It is from Doctor Who.
Oh, no.
Okay. That changes things.
Wait, which one? Because this will determine how much hate mail we get on the show.
It's Peter Capaldi.
Oh, man. Here we go.
No.
At least it's not Jodie Whittaker.
I know.
We don't need that kind of hate.
I said the doctor, not the nurse.
Not the nurse.
Please know that's a joke. She's one of my favorites. No, but the doctor says, everything ends and it's always sad, but everything begins again too, and that's always happy. So be happy.
That's, I mean, that's the whole thesis statement of the doctor, right? He's always restarting.
Right.
They're always restarting. They're always reinventing themselves. Not really, just the surface level stuff, but you get it. Yeah. It's always about rebirth and new chapters and, what's my look gonna be this time? What's my TARDIS gonna look like? It's
right. I'm changing my look or my TARDIS or my friends. My friends move on with their life, so I get new friends.
And yeah, it's all of those things. It's it's Winnie the Pooh, you know, like Pooh ends when Christopher Robin moves on, and you know, then it's the famous quote that goes around, you know, how lucky am I to have something that I'll miss, or I don't remember.
I know.
It doesn't,
we know the quote.
It doesn't sound as good when I fuck it up, but like it's all of those things. It's you have to shed something you love to go get something else that you love. There's tragedy and there's hope and possibility.
Right.
It's all here.
It's a great, like, kind of outlook on loss.
It's a great lesson about life. Because that's what life is, in a lot of ways, is leaving things behind and getting new things.
That's true. Very true.
See this movie.
I have nothing else to add.
I'm a big fan of the work that Laika Studios has done in the last, 15, 20 years?
They're pretty new.
They're fairly new and still a pretty small studio. I feel like this is actually one of the best movies they put out, and I feel like it's the least seen. I don't know that I've ever talked to somebody who's seen this movie and didn't really, really like it. But I still feel like there's a ton of people. I feel I won't say nobody. Not that many people talk about this movie. Like, this is not a movie that is in conversation in the way Pixar movies are. And even something like Coraline or Paranorman that's a little more seen.
I think it just came out at, like, a bad time. 2016 had a lot of, like, more popular movies and just life stuff in general going on.
Kind of a weird year, yeah. But, yeah, that very well could be.
Because I know that's why I didn't see it. Like, it was on my radar. I saw the trailers. I was like, yes, I'm in. And then it just went out of theaters, and I didn't see it in time.
It really kind of flew under the radar, and I feel like it shouldn't have. It took me a little while to catch up to it as well. But I was the same way. I'm like, oh, this is Japanese folklore. It's about music, it's about monsters. I'm like, this is like a movie made for me. But like I think this is still a really underseen movie. I don't think it's streaming anywhere. But I think it's worth going a little out of your way and renting it or buying it or seeking it out in some way. Or when it shows up on a streaming service to check it out. Because I think it's... I don't know that there's almost anyone that I wouldn't recommend this movie to. Little kids, I'd say know your kids. Know how dark they can handle. But...
right. People always talk about, like, the Disney Renaissance and, like, the golden age of Pixar. And I feel like Laika Studios, like, their whole history so far, they are in that. They have not left that yet.
Sure.
And so now I'm just excited for what comes next.
I
Like,
feel like
not just, like, moving on from this movie, but, like, I want to see more from them.
Well, it's like Laika is a movie studio that I'm just sort of like, oh, Laika's putting a movie out. Cool. I'm going to see it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, almost everything they haven't done anything bad. They've done things that aren't necessarily as good.
I would say Box Trolls.
Box Trolls,
is like...
I only say that because I don't remember it. And it's just sort of like, I feel like if it was probably a little bit better, I'd probably remember more about it. I remember very little about that movie. It just sort of happened. But I love Paranorman. I love Coraline. And I love Kubo. And it's just sort of like, if Laika, if you make a movie, you will get my money in some way, shape, or form.
Did they do Frankenweenie?
No, that's a Disney thing.
Okay.
Because that was a Tim Burton short, like a live action short film, when he was like, he used to work for Disney, like very early in his career. And now he circled back around to work on the big budget end of Disney. And that's when he made Frankenweenie into like
his student film into like a full-fledged...
That's exactly what happened. Like, then they're like, oh, Tim Burton, you're a name now. Well, remake Frankenweenie for us. Here's a shitload of money.
Okay.
And
I wasn't sure, but yeah.
Yeah, it's but I do think they're one of the last studios that's doing stop motion, and
they take their time on it too, because this is their latest movie, right?
I believe so.
And
yeah.
there's big spaces between their output, which is not a bad thing.
No, I think that's
quality over quantity.
Oh, Missing Link. They did do Missing Link as well, which I have not seen.
Oh, is that about I think I saw like the trailer for that. That's about like cavemen, right?
Something like that, yeah. Chris Butler. Chris Butler directed that. Written and directed by Chris Butler.
Once again.
Hugh Jackman, Zoe Saldana, David Williams, Stephen Fry, Matt Lucas, Timothy Oliphant, Emma Thompson, Zach Galifianakis. I'm gonna have to sit down with this.
That was like right before the pandemic, right? Because I remember seeing a trailer in theaters.
2019, it looks like.
Okay.
So a year before the pandemic. Yeah, I have no... This is what I'm talking about, though. Laika Studios, it just flies under the radar. This isn't... They don't... I don't know if they don't have the marketing budget that Pixar does, and they just get buried by Disney in the zeitgeist conversation.
Right.
But, this is a studio...
and they have big names.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
It really is. But yeah, we're going to have to...
I wouldn't call them unsuccessful too. Like I think they make more than enough profit off of their movies. I just think sometimes things aren't like as popular in like you said
the zeitgeist.
Kinda, yeah. Like the general conversation.
Yeah, that's I didn't look at like box office versus budget numbers, but they're an independent animation studio. Animation is super costly. They would have to do good to keep going, and they've been going, but it's just a question of margins and things like that. But I think it's one of those things also where it's sort of like, I bet they get good names because they do good work, and somebody like Hugh Jackman may look at that and just go, I want to work with them because, I want to do a cool indie movie. I want to do a cool indie project or whatever. And
Right.
It just is, it's interesting how independent animation works. And I really hope they keep going. It's kind of like Aardman, who did Wallace and Gromit. They did all the what is those?
The sheep movie?
Shaun the Sheep. And they did a bunch of, I don't remember what they're called. It was like a TV show with like talking animals. It's like audio that they would take and then they would make these claymation animals say it.
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about.
I'll have to look it up. But all that stuff, the Nick Park, Aardman Studios thing, really successful, but never like really broke through the mainstream. Shaun the Sheep, I think, probably did the best over here because that was like more of a kid's movie. I think was it a TV show or a Disney Channel or something?
It was kind of like Minions, like these cute little...
Yeah.
Oh, what are they getting up to now?
Right. But you have stuff like the Wallace and Gromit stuff, which I think is well regarded everywhere. I think it's bigger in the UK.
Wallace and Gromit is great.
But it never like, as far as like competing with the juggernaut that is like Disney.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't break through in the same way.
I feel like if I was just having a conversation with one of my friends and I brought up Wallace and Gromit, I would instantly start explaining what it is. Like, I don't think everyone knows it.
Yeah, it's a little more niche. Or there's a movie from like maybe 10 years ago called The Secret of Kells, which is this European thing about the like a monastery in Ireland. It's this really beautiful animated movie. I remember I only heard about it because it was nominated for an Oscar. It didn't stand a freaking chance because it was up against whatever Pixar movie was out that year.
Sure.
But there's just some great like independent European animation studios that do stuff. Ghibli, Studio Ghibli. I mean,
right?
I think they've got
a lot of stuff out there.
That's more accessible now because Disney distributes it but at its heart, that is an independent animation studio or an overseas animation studio. It's probably much bigger in Japan, but like these things are out there, and things like Laika, I think it's important to support them, and I think it's important to. I think we're doing the Lord's work just by, talking about it here.
That's right. I'm going to pat myself on the back.
That's right.
And
Way to go, Austin.
I expect a check in the mail,
I would just like to be cast in one of your movies. Can me and Austin come do voices?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, but you have to animate us as us.
Oh, please. Yes.
Yeah.
I'll submit some concept art.
I'll have my agent send some stuff by.
God, how great would that be?
Oh my god.
Anyway, that's what we got on this. Kubo and the Two Strings. Cannot recommend this enough.
Yes. Also, real quick, I loved the hair tying into that being the two strings.
Yes.
I just thought two strings because the guitar, and then it was about his parents.
Chekhov's guitar strings. And it was his parents, and then his hair was the third.
Right.
The third string. It was the family unit, the army of three.
That's right. Kubo and the two
strings.
Parents.
That's right. It was brilliant.
It was nice.
Very good. Let's move on to shout-outs. Outside of shouting out this movie, what do you got?
All right. I am uplifting a indie podcast called The Nuclear Solution. It is ended. And I believe the creator, it's a small creator, they've moved on to other things, and are still creating, but I just found this, and it, caught my interest when I listened to the first episode. It's by Dallas Wheatley.
Okay.
And, it's essentially, so the apocalypse has happened, and this is simply a broadcasted radio transmission kind of like, what's it called? Depression era. Like, here's how you live civilized in this hard time. Like, here's how you bleach your clothes using whatever makeshift material. And then you use what's left of, like, dyeing your clothes with beets. Then you can take those beets and you can make this stew out of them. And it's just, like, weird, like, tips like that. But then there's a world built around it about how, like, there's a corporation. Like, there's still people trying to get power. And they're using this, this radio station to kind of, like, brainwash people into, like, you need us to be civilized. And we're rebuilding society. I don't know. But it's really cool. And I'm still in the early episodes, and I think the story is going to develop further. So, I don't know the full summary, but...
Interesting.
Yeah. What do you have?
Cool. I have a podcast called Surviving Creativity, and this is a show where Corey Cassoni, Brad Geiger, and Scott Kurtz have usually come on there and talked about different creative issues and things like that. They went on hiatus for, I don't know, like a year and a half or 2 years, and have recently come back. And largely what it is now is Scott Kurtz interviewing people. If you don't know Scott Kurtz, he does the comic strip PvP. He's done that for like 20 years. Really big in the webcomics community. But I want to point out specifically, he did a 2-part interview with Donna and Scott Saba, who Scott Saba is he's a cartoonist, and at a certain point they decided that they were going to make an animated movie. They wrote it, they funded it themselves, they raised all the money, and set out to produce this movie. I think 2013, 2014 is when the production started. They got people like Sylvester Stallone, Danny DeVito, John Krasinski, and Emily Blunt.
Oh my gosh.
These really big names to be in this movie. It's called Animal Crackers. I believe it's on Netflix.
Did this come out recently?
It's come out in the last couple of years. This podcast came out recently, yes. Where this is them telling their story. And it is a really interesting look at independent filmmaking, animation, pardon the rainstorm, and what it takes to not only make a movie, but to sell a movie. They were brand new. They'd never worked in Hollywood before. They'd never done any of this stuff. They got taken advantage of. They got caught up in lawsuits. They got all of these. It's a wild, wild story. It's super interesting. I think if you are interested in any of like the machinations of how the movie business works, it's super interesting because they start bringing up things that they'd never thought of. I would never think of. You don't know that things are problems until you're knee deep in them. It's stressful and terrifying, and it's super interesting, and it's a great interview.
That's insane. But it sounds like a great, like, underdog story, like,
yeah,
breaking into Hollywood almost.
And they really, like, the thing I've always liked about Surviving Creativity is a lot of their mission statement is like, your failures are not necessarily just you failed at something. They're potential learning experiences. Like, you learn from your failures. And that's a lot of what this couple walked away from, is saying, like, we didn't know these things, but we know them now. So next time, we know how to avoid this. We know what, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's almost better than film school, is to just make a film and see what... I remember, sorry to make this about me.
No,
when I was a senior in high school, I entered this short film contest.
Yep, I remember.
And it was, the idea was you make it in 3 days. And I failed horribly. Like, we didn't even submit anything, because there was a problem with the cartridge and the camera, and like the shots were bad, and like I did not know how to manage actors. It was this whole thing.
You had too many collaborators. You had too many people. I remember. Yeah,
it was a nightmare. Yeah. But I learned so much from it. Like I walked away thinking, "Wow, I wish I had never done that." But like, I think I have a better grasp of what filmmaking takes, and would be better at a second chance or a second try if I did that now.
Yeah. I heard years ago interview with Quentin Tarantino, to take it back to last week, where he talked about he didn't go to film school. He made a movie, and he invested like $10,000 in making this movie. He never finished it, but he's like, I spent $10,000 and got an education in how to make a movie. He's like, that's a fraction of what you would spend going to film school. He's like, I learned more by actually doing something and failing at it, and spent a fraction of the money than I would have gotten out of any film school. And it just was a really interesting perspective, which at the time I hadn't considered, because I was failing at art left and right and thinking, oh, okay, there's a spin on this, that's very interesting.
Yeah, and there's always a plus side.
Yeah, it's a great perspective to have. If you followed Scott Kurtz for a long time, I don't mean this is a terrible dig. He has not always been the most positive person, but I think at some point his outlook shifted. Getting more mature helps that usually. Right. And Surviving Creativity is a really interesting show in that. That's the perspective that it tends to take. And again, this I'm long-winded in my recommendation here again. But I really recommend checking this interview out. It's fantastic.
We always get sidetracked.
Yeah, but it's what we do.
It's on brand.
That's right. We're a brand. Like Laika Studios, who will be casting us in their upcoming movie.
Stay tuned.
Critics.
We'll let them name it.
Yeah.
But we will be starring.
We'll be starring.
Oh, I've upgraded us.
Yes. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Picture Show with Austin and Phil Rood. If you enjoy our show, please leave a review on your podcatcher of choice. It really helps our visibility, and it helps us grow the show.
That's right. Another way to help us grow is to tell a friend. We love storytelling on this podcast, so gather a large group in a sort of town square, wherever you can. If it helps, we can send you templates of origami versions of ourselves.
Yes.
And tell the story of The Picture Show and recommend us.
What a great way to do it.
Yeah. What's in store next week, though?
Next week, we're just wrapping up. This was our last movie of season 2. We have hit our 20 episodes. And next week, we are going to be reviewing, just looking back at our last 20 movies and
reviewing our reviews,
talking about, what did we like, what did we not like, what do we want to revisit, what do we want to never watch again.
I love that we do that. Like it especially gives us time to breathe, and like sometimes my opinions change after an episode, like after I've watched it a few times, and it's also good to look back on what we watch, because I forget until I go look at our episode list. Like, what have we watched this season? And then you go back and you're like, oh yeah, Hidden Fortress. Oh yeah, 12 Angry Men. Oh yeah, Astronaut Farmer. Like these. They're not always the best.
They're not, but yeah. I forget that we watch them. And, I spend a lot of time with the artwork and everything in still, Soul seems so long ago, but
God, we did Soul.
We kicked this season off with that. So we're going to be looking back at our last 20 movies, and then we're going to close it out and go on hiatus for a little bit.
That's right.
Going on
See you later, suckers.
All right, Austin, what do you got for social media?
Oh, come on. I am Austin N. Rood, and The Old Who Review on Twitter.
You got it.
That is me. What are you?
I am philrood.com, and you can get my social media links from there. You can check out all of our episodes there. You can watch videos from the show. And you can buy art. Very reasonably priced art. Whatever you see as the episode art that I post online, you can buy that. You can buy the original. Yeah, that brings us to the same place we end up every week. Austin, you want to read the credits?
Yep, we did everything ourselves.
Well, there you have it. We'll see you next time on The Picture Show.
See ya.